Guests on Keel are heard via the Jack Spring Electric Keel Newsmaker hotline. One of those is Mr. Mark Cooper, Parkway High School guy, if memory serves. He is also the Chief of Staff for Governor John Bell Edwards. Welcome back to Keel, Mr. Mark. How you doing this morning?
Hey, good morning, Robert.
Did I get that right? Parkway guy, right?
You did.
Okay, we were talking last night because we went to the Trump rally. Aaron and I were speaking last night to GOP candidate Eddie Rispone. And I said to Mr. Eddie, I said, so when's the last time you got a really good night's sleep? He said, define good night's sleep. If I asked the governor the same question, would he say the same thing?
Well, I think so. He's been going about 1,000,000 miles a minute. I mean, going till 10 or 11 o'clock every night, both he and the First Lady. But I think, he's that way, 365 days a year. But, certainly during the campaign, he's probably working later hours than normal. But, no, I think he'll be glad when this is over with, as all of us will be. Just 2 more days.
Couple of polls have come out this last week. The one I saw, what was it? Was it yesterday? 49.
Yeah, Edgewater poll.
Good Lord, man! Can you get any closer than that? When the governor's campaign people, when they're strategists, when the governor sees something like that, 49, what does that change, if anything, over the last 48 hours of the campaign?
Well, we've got a strategy, and the campaign. And by the way, I'm continuing to do the state government stuff every day, so I'm not working on the campaign. But we actually had a poll that came out last night, and it's an outside poll that we've been actually looking at, and actually was much better than that. It shows the governor doing very well. And I will say this, and I know you've probably heard of Larry Sabato from the University of Virginia Institute of Politics. He's who the Fox News uses during the presidential election. He's now showing that, the race leans toward the governor. It was a toss-up, but yesterday he's now saying it leans toward the governor. So the polls that we're looking at are showing it much better for the governor than the one that you just cited. But the campaign has a great strategy that they've been sticking to. So, I mean, it's all about turnout. I mean, we saw during early voting, we're very positive about how well that went, and it's about turnout, and they've got a strategy for that. And so they're going to continue to do that. Plus the fact the governor's he and the First Lady have been hitting the road, and they've been all over the state, and they continue to do that today. They'll be doing that tomorrow, and that's just sticking with the strategy. And, they did some changes after the primary. And so I think we all feel very confident, but it's about turnout because polls do not vote. So we'll see what happens.
When you see something like we just mentioned, 49-49, which is, I guess, what they call an external poll. But then you've got your own polling, the internal stuff. Can you give us, what does that look like to you guys? Is it any different, or do you anticipate that it could come down literally to a few thousand votes?
Well, again, the poll we saw that came out last night was an external poll, and it aligned with our internal polls. So there's several external polls that we're looking at to show the governor doing very well and ahead of Mr. Rispone. And the other thing I would say, too, is that, a lot of the stuff you get from information on the ground. For example, as was reported yesterday, Congressman Abraham's son-in-law actually wrote a check to the governor. So when you've got those kind of things happening, and his campaign manager, and we're hearing stuff anecdotally, out in the field, people are telling us that our Abraham supporters are telling the governor, and we're hearing this from, a lot of sources, and that they're supporting the governor. And there's a lot of paths for the governor to victory. That makes us feel like these polls that we're hearing externally are correct. And then when you see the numbers from the early voting, that's also, reiterating what we're hearing in these external polls. But again, polls don't vote. It's about turnout. We'll see Saturday whose polls are right. But we're going to, and as the governor says, he's going to run like he's 10 points behind. And that's what he's been doing, since the primary.
Talking to Mark Cooper, Governor's Chief of Staff, Governor John Bell Edwards. Last night, the president was in Bossier City for a big rally, drumming up support for Eddie Rispone, and urged people to get out and vote, get their neighbors to vote, get their family members to vote. But he took a lot of shots at Governor Edwards. The governor has previously said on many occasions that he and the president have a good working relationship. Has this changed anything, all these rallies that he's had?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I don't, that's what presidents do. And they're going to support their party. And the governor has said that. And he's been to the White House and in other places 9 times visiting with the president. I've actually, sat in on phone calls where the president has complimented the governor about what a great job he's doing here in Louisiana. He's consulted with him on criminal justice reform, on infrastructure, on veterans issues. at one of the NGA events, he actually had the governor and the first lady sit next to him and Melania at a dinner at the White House. And, it's not open seating when you go to those things. That's planned out. I mean, they've got a good working relationship. And come Monday, I know that the governor will reach out to him and they'll work together, and we'll be back working with the White House. We've got a great relationship with his cabinet, and we'll continue to do that.
Mark, what's the biggest fallacy the president is spreading about the governor? I heard one last night, but I wanted to know what you've heard.
Well, and first of all, he's getting talking points, and we know, where those are coming from, and they all know that these are fallacies. First of all, Second Amendment. You probably saw the Shreveport Times yesterday. I know Richard Lipsey, who's the biggest pro-gun person in the United States, if not the world. He sold the governor's father. His father went to Richard Lipsey back in the 60s or 70s. I don't know when it was, and bought the governor's first gun. To say he's not pro-Second Amendment, we all know that's not true. And then, of course, the pro-life. I mean, the governor is probably one of the biggest pro-life governors in the country, has signed some of the strictest legislation. The state of Louisiana knows that that's just, to say that he's not pro-life is just not correct. But the president's just getting that information, for people that are just trying to put a wedge in the state of Louisiana. But the state of Louisiana is much smarter than that. So, I mean, we're not too concerned about that. People know that that's just a fallacy, as you just indicated, and you know that as well. So, but that's fine. And that's what happens during campaigns. But again, on Monday, we know that we're just going to get back to business and do what we can to make Louisiana better, and as the president's trying to make the country better, and we'll all work together. And we'll say this too, that everyone wants to see the president. We know that there were people there from Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas. I mean, I had friends, and I saw on Facebook last night from Bossier City that were there that I know are supporting Governor Edwards. So it wasn't so much a pro-Rispone rally as it was a pro-Trump rally, and we know that. And so, again, we're looking forward to Saturday. We know we feel very confident on how that's going to turn out. And then we're also looking forward to a second term.
You had mentioned, you had mentioned earlier in the conversation, as both candidates have, that turnout is very, very important. In the last, say, 10 days to 2 weeks, the Edwards campaign has targeted African-American voters, and I'm looking right here. Eddie Rispone stands with David Duke. Is that true?
No, first of all, that's not something the governor put out. You have no control over what every single person in the state does or what they say. I think that was something that came out of New Orleans, and that was not something that the governor, he's tried to run a very clean campaign, whereas I would say that there has been things that have come out of some folks' mouths close to Mr. Rispone, if not himself. The governor's been very clean about what he's said, and no, he's not. The governor himself has not said, or even his campaign has not said anything having to do with David Duke, and we're not saying that.
And you rebuke that, I would assume.
Yes, of course.